Hi, and welcome to a Small Medium at Large podcast. I'm your host, Gail Hyson, bringing you intimate interviews beyond normal boundaries. I want to thank all of you listeners for liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting, and just sticking with us as we start our fifth year and our 125th show. I want you to all know that we have four different guests coming up in the next couple of months. One is from France, one is from Ethiopia, one is from a kibbutz in Israel, and one is a plant medicine man from Portugal. So we have some international people from other countries coming to join us in the next few shows. So let me tell you about today's show and our special guest, Jessica Rachel. Jessica Rachel is a spiritual channel intuitive coach. She channels divine guidance from your spirit guides to help you become the truest and most aligned version of yourself in this life. Jessica truly believes that her intuitive gifts are not unique and that everyone can access their spirit guides. She has made it her mission to help everyone discover their own intuitive power and trust that the answers they seek are always within. Jessica is known for her grounded and relatable approach, bridging spirituality with real life transformation through channeled guidance. Her work is especially impactful during experiences of burnout, transition, and spiritual awakening. She helps people recognize when they are out of alignment and shows them how to understand the ways their spirit guides are redirecting them toward their true purpose. Jessica will share how to quiet the mind's negative loops and use inner stillness to recognize the intuitive gifts that are already within. Jessica is also the host of the Intuition Activation Podcast. Let's welcome Jessica here today. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Gail. What a beautiful intro. So long and thank you. So
Well,
happy
that's
to
all, it's
be
all
here.
true about you. That's what I'm putting
Yes, it's all
there.
true. So thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here too as well. And I have to say, this is my first question I ask all my guests when it's a first time here, because I don't know anything about you. Where did you grow up, and were you in a family that was on a spiritual path, or did you have members in the family who were in touch with their intuitive side? Or was there anything in your childhood that is part of the foundation of the work you're doing right now?
Yeah, so no, not at all. I grew up in Toronto, Canada. I was born there. My grandparents were born there, like very, very Canadian family, and a Jewish family at that. And so I was raised Jewish, with, Jewish faith, and that was sort of the only, I guess you would say, spirituality that was introduced to me, but it was more from a structured religious space rather than a connection to the divine and source,
Mhm.
right? It was a lot more structured. Do this and you're going to be a good Jew, and don't do it and you're a sinner, right? Like, that's sort of the way it is. So no, my family was never really into any of this, and I was definitely a big, when I did start discovering my gifts, I was definitely kind of the black sheep of the family. However, I definitely know that my mother did seek out mediums when she was a young adult, and she would tell us about that. So there was a lot of there was, I wouldn't say a lot of discussion, but definitely an understanding and a belief, and that is also a Jewish principle, that there are loved ones we can connect to on the other side. They're not really gone, and your soul lives on. And so that was part of it for sure, part of my upbringing, but spirit guides and channeling and all of that came into my world completely out of left field, and was very new to my family, to the point where many of my family members still are extremely skeptical.
Mm.
So
I
yeah.
I understand that very, very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so what put you on the spiritual path? I mean, in Judaism there is, in all structured religions, there's all pieces of spirituality, and there is things about recognizing that there are ghosts or spirits, or I don't know much about. I was
Yeah.
I was raised atheist, but I come from also uh, my grandparents were practicing. They weren't Orthodox Jews. They were sort well, semi-religious Jews. So I was
Okay.
exposed to some of this, but my father raised us all atheists, so we got exposed to his points of view. So we got to see both. Do you
Yeah.
remember a time or was there an experience? Sometimes people have, an accident or something that happens that's positive or negative that seems at the time, but it actually propels them on a spiritual path. And I was wondering if you had any pivotal moment or story you might be able to share about that.
Yeah, 100%. And you nailed it on the head. That's exactly what happened to me.
Ah,
It's always the way, right? We always need a big giant wake-up call, right?
mhm. Yes.
And so that really was my experience. I can say now, looking back on my childhood, there were some experiences of channeling that I didn't realize were what they were. So I can definitely remember waking up as a little child, definitely very, very young, less than 4 years old, right? Waking up and seeing things sitting at the end of my bed and being
Mhm.
very scared and running into my parents' room. And again, the loving parents that they are who know nothing about this other world said, it's a nightmare. You're fine. Go back to sleep, right? And so, beyond maybe age 3 or 4, those experiences kind of dwindled away. And now, as a channel and a medium who's very connected to my spirit guides and knows what they look like and has conversations with them, I remember the first time I reconnected with my own guides and went, "Hey, I remember you. You used to sit at the end of my bed." Right? So there was that. But in between, age 3 or 4 up until about 25, there was nothing in there in between there.
Mhm.
And so for me, it was actually that I was before becoming a spiritual medium or, a medium at all, I was an elementary school teacher. And I
Mhm.
taught grade 4, taught grade 7, and I never imagined wanting to be anything else besides that. I love kids. I want to work with kids. I have lots of kids, right? Like it was my passion. And I started to pursue that passion. And I remember getting like these little intuitive hits that like there was something about this career that's not right. And
Mhm.
the family really encouraged me to keep going. Up here in Canada, it's actually considered a really highly coveted job. It's hard to get, it's decently paid. We have good benefits, right? And so, everybody was encouraging me, like, do the thing. It's great. Keep going. And, I kept going, even though there was a part of me going, there's something about this that's not fitting for me. And the way that I like to see it is like the way spirit guides work, the way source works is like it starts with little whispers, little pebbles, and then the whispers get louder and then it becomes rocks. And then if you don't listen, it becomes boulders. And then, the rug gets pulled out from under you. And so that's exactly what happened to me. And so I did enter the field of teaching, and that little niggling feeling at the back of my head that maybe this wasn't aligned for me grew bigger and bigger. And that looked like circumstances that made it more and more uncomfortable to be there. So it looked like, one year having a really difficult colleague whose classroom was right next to mine. And then the next year having a really difficult classroom with all of these behaviors that was really hard to manage, right? Then the next year having a principal who's breathing down everybody's neck and making life miserable, right? And just the more and more I got into this career, the more I was hating life, the more my anxiety was amplified, the more my health was starting to deteriorate.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, Gail, like you could mark it on a calendar. I was getting sick like every 3 weeks on the dot. And I honestly
Mhm.
now look back and think, like at the time, I was like, oh, I work with kids. Of course I'm getting sick all the time. And I was like, no, my body was trying to protect me from an environment that wasn't working for me, right? Making me sick so that I didn't have to be there. And so I believe I was in my third year of teaching, and I was absolutely miserable. And I just couldn't see anything else for myself because I was such a people pleaser. And I wanted to please my friends and my family and society. And this was a good job,
Mhm.
subjectively. And so I was driving to work one day and it was really snowy and icy, and my car slipped on some black ice. It went spinning and I slammed into a frozen snowbank. Hit it so hard that my front right wheel and door came off. Okay.
Oh,
It was
wow.
a pretty big hit.
That's a
Um,
hit.
yeah. And I ended up, thank God, with not too many injuries, but I did have a concussion. And so I was given a couple of weeks off of work. They were like, you got to stay away from screens. You got to rest. You can't be
Mhm.
walking around too much. So I remember being so relieved to just have a couple, even just 2 weeks off of work to just take a break. And that should have been my first sign, but like maybe this job isn't for you, that you're thrilled to have a concussion. But but I was thrilled to have a break. And so, I recovered from the concussion, and it just so happened to be right before the Christmas break, so it had that little extra time prior to the Christmas break off. I got cleared by the doctor and I went skiing with my husband and a couple of friends. And I was wearing rental skis, and this was the day or two before we are supposed to go back after the break, and I fell. And my skis did not release from my boots. So I went one way, but my feet went the other, and I ripped my knee apart.
Oh God.
Or my ACL, my MCL, my LCL, like all of it, just tore it to pieces. And so I get a phone call from HR the day before I was supposed to go back to work. And they're like, "How's your concussion? How are you doing? Do you need any support?" And I went, "Well, actually, I'm on crutches." And they went, "You know what? Now you're a liability to us. Like you just had a concussion. Now you're on crutches. We can't have you walking around the school grounds when it's icy and slippery. You're going to have to take a paid sick leave. You cannot come back until there's no more snow on the ground." Well, it was January at the time. I live here in Canada. They gave me 5 months off. They told me, "Do not come back till May."
Nice, 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 nice rest. Gee,
Yeah,
and
right.
very
There's a
caring.
big
Yeah.
rest. And I, again, was so relieved to not have to go back. And my husband turned to me at the time and he said, "Well, you keep saying you don't know if you want to be a teacher. Maybe take this time to figure something else out. Like you've got nothing but time now." And I appreciate that he pushed me a little bit. And I kind of still was so stuck in this, like, I need to do what society says you need to do. So I said, that, at the very least, if I'm still going to be a teacher, I've got to manage this anxiety so that I'm not as miserable in this job. And that's when I started seeking out meditation. And I'd never meditated in my life before, but I remember I had met a woman back when I was in teachers college who had since decided not to be a teacher. She pulled her own kids out of school, started homeschooling them, and running these women's meditation circles in her house. And so I reached out to her, only person I knew who was anything related to meditation, and asked if I could join her circle. And these women who were at this women's circle most of them were all former teachers who kind of, they were talking about things like detaching from the matrix and right, like all of these things that were so beyond anything I had ever heard of before. And it felt like such a truth. It felt like a truth
Wow.
that was hitting me and it was waking me up. And I meditated for the first time, and I had never felt such peace in my entire life. I don't
Mm,
think I had ever realized how much the anxiety was running in the background, that it had just become so normal to me that I finally felt relief from that. So, needless to say, I was hooked.
mhm.
And anytime she ran this meditation circle, which was sometimes once a week, sometimes twice a week, I went to every single one because I could not get enough of that feeling of feeling separated from my own anxiety and having peace for once. And so, but this was a very spiritual group. And so they were talking about a lot of things that were so new to me, but feeling like such a hard truth. And so, a few months into learning how to meditate and connecting with these women, I finally went up to the leader of this group and said, I really think I'm like you guys. I don't think I believe in this teaching thing anymore, but I can't figure out what I want to do with my life. And she said, "Well, why don't you ask your spirit guides?" And I went, "My what?" Like, what are you talking about? And she tried to explain it to me. She goes, there's this app online. It's called Insight Timer. There's millions of meditations on there. Find the ones that help you connect to your spirit guides. Your guides are there to help you with your path and your purpose in your life. Go do these meditations and ask your guides for your answer. And I was like, all right, I'll bite, like, figure it out. So I went home and I found all those meditations that she was suggesting for me. And, some of these meditations were like 2 hours long. Like they were long, long
Oh, wow.
meditations, all to try to open up your third eye and help you connect so that you can connect with your guides. But eventually, after a couple of weeks of really, really trying to do it, I did connect and I did start to receive messages from my guides. And the only reason I was pursuing this, again, was to answer this one question, right? If I'm not supposed to be a teacher, what am I supposed to do with my life? And at first, these messages were very cryptic, right? As they are when we start to open up our intuition. So asked my guides, "Please let me know if I'm not supposed to be a teacher. Just give me a sign." And I would see a lion in my meditation. Be like, "Well, what's that?" Right? Like, doesn't help me. And then the next day, I went to a friend's house, and the second I walked in the door, her little 4-year-old son grabbed me by the arm, pulled me up the stairs, and said, "Jessica, Jessica, I have to show you something." And he points to this lion figurine sitting at the top of the stairs on a table there. And I went, "Oh my God, chills all over my body. Like, what? There's the lion I saw in my meditation yesterday. Why did you want to show me that?" And he goes, "I don't know," shrugs it off and goes off to play. I went,
Ah,
"Okay, like there's something here, right?" And so it was very much like that for the first couple of months, asking for signs and starting to receive them, but knowing there's something there, but not really being able to receive really clear messages from my guides. And then it was finally a few months in, I went to one of those meditation circles again, and there was a new woman there. She was running a drumming circle. And she said that she was what'd she say she was? A reflexologist. She was a
Mhm.
medium, but she didn't say that. And she said she worked with people on their anxiety. Now, my husband at the time was also trying to heal his own anxiety. And so I asked her if she would come and work on us. She said, sure. We went to her house the next day. And my husband said to me, I don't know about all this woo-woo stuff that you're getting into, but if I am going to be treated by this woman, you are coming into that room with me. I'm not going alone. I was like, all right, no problem. So she wanted to see him first. She lays him down on a table. And yeah, she's doing a little bit of reflexology on her. I'm sitting on the floor meditating, enjoying the music. And she starts calling in all of these beings of light. She calls in, Archangel Michael and, the purple flame of Saint Germain and a whole bunch of other things. And I'm sitting there and I actually see these beings come into the room one at a time as she's calling them. And then I see her ask them to send energy through her hands. I see that happen. And then I see her send that energy and manipulate this energy and pour it over my husband's body. And I see my husband's body reacting in real time to the energy that she's sending to him. To this day, Gail, still the most incredible magical experience I've ever witnessed in my entire life.
Well, you
Just
were
like
seeing the invisible.
yeah, yeah. And I was like, my jaw hit the floor, right?
Hmm.
And so as soon as she finished working on my husband, I ran up to her and I was like, when you called in so and so, did he look like this? And this one, was he this color? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, you've got to teach me how to do this.
And you're already doing it.
Right? What are you doing? How do you do it? And so she said for her, her experience was different. She had been communicating with these beings on the other side her entire life. She'd always known about it. And so she never, attempted to teach somebody else how to do it because it just came so naturally to her. But she agreed to try. I started going to her house every day pretty much for the next few months, and she taught me everything she knew. So she taught me how to call your guides in, how to connect with your loved ones, how to ground yourself, how to create boundaries, right? All the things you need to know in order to do this to
That
do this
kind of work.
properly and safely and all of the things. And I definitely, after working with her, was able to connect with loved ones from the other side. And then very quickly, soon after, able to connect with my own spirit guides and receive messages from them. She gave me a lot of podcasts and a lot of books to read, and I found a bunch of my own until I figured out sort of my own way of doing it. And finally, I was able to ask my guides and get real clear answers. When I asked that question, well, what am I supposed to be doing with my life if I'm not supposed to be a teacher? And they went, this, Jessica, you're supposed to do this, right? You're supposed to help people who are in the same spot as you, who are kind of lost in their life and they need to find their true path and purpose. Call in their guides, connect with us, and we will show you how to put them on the right path too. And so
Well,
that
you
was,
didn't actually change. You're still in the same position. You're teaching. It's
I'm
just
teaching,
that you're
but
not
just
going
not
to a
children.
public school or a particular school and having a
Yeah,
group of children sitting in front of you. But I feel
exactly.
like you're still taking what you've learned as a teacher with you to teach the next path that you're on now.
100%. And I still definitely use those elements. And yeah, so that's what I did. I started this business. I went back to school for the last month and then I quit by the end of the summer and I started doing this full time and I've never ever looked back. So
Well, this is a positive and wonderful story. I'm sorry.
yeah.
We all seem to have to go through those other things first
Yeah.
to get to that place. So
Hmm.
it's like you always say, "Oh, I'm grateful to the accident, or I'm grateful to the cancer I had, or I'm grateful to the thing that happened because it
Yeah.
changed me in a way that I needed to go to."
Yeah.
I guess it would be nice. I guess some people don't have to go through that, but seems like most of us do. That's why we're here with a body.
Yeah. And you know what? I always say, and this is why I tell people it's so important to connect with your intuition because, your guides are going to work for you in the background, whether you're paying attention to them or not. If you're
Mhm.
not paying attention to them, it's a much rockier road, right? They are going to
I've
change
had
circumstances
yes,
until you listen.
yes, I've had the boulders and what.
Right? Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
and
better to just check in with them and do what they said the first
right.
place.
When it
Yeah.
happens again or something, I say, "Oh God, why didn't you listen?"
Right?
So tell our listeners why intuitive gifts are not unique to a select few, and how can anyone access their spirit guides?
Yes, absolutely. And this is my favorite thing. I almost say this is like my mission in life because I definitely grew up watching those shows like Long Island Medium and, all of those things where I thought like you had to be a chosen one, right? It was only special to
Uh,
specific people, right? And like here I am, this elementary school teacher who was able to tap in, like, what? What is that? Because your intuition is your birthright and everybody is born with an intuition, right? And we
yes.
all have access to it. And the question is, it's not how do you get to it, it's how do you remember it's there, and then how do you trust it once it's already there, right? And so it's more a game of trusting yourself and trusting that it's always been playing in the background of your whole life, as opposed to this thing that I have to get to or this thing that only special people get to have. And so for me, it's huge. And I always tell people like look back in your life and think about the time where you had a gut feeling about something, right? Maybe it was not to go to that party tonight. And did you ignore it, right? What happened when you ignored the gut feeling? Was it a negative outcome, right? Did you kind of regret it, right? What did it feel like when you felt that gut feeling and go back to it? And then the next time you feel that gut feeling, follow it, right? And does it benefit you? And that's how you really slowly start to build and flex that muscle just a little bit more, right? And then, of course, we can dive into all of the ways that we can really, really open it up and actually see our guides and talk to our guides and have conversations with them and connect with them. But at the very least, at the smallest scale of it, trust that your body's going to do the talking a lot of the time. Everybody gets those whispers at the back of their head. Everybody gets those chills down their spine. But the question is, are you paying attention to them?
Also, like what you said when we were first starting talking, the refer to it this way, just like you said, the voice, when you hear the voice in your head and it's just a whisper, the
Yeah,
more times you listen to it, the voice becomes stronger and clearer. So that instead of saying, wait, what did I just feel or think? Instead, it's like right there in front and center saying to you, don't take this road now. You know, you should not go down that road right now. You need to
yeah,
go, you need to drive your car in this direction. Very
yeah,
important to listen to those because that's how you avoid an accident, or that's how you avoid, being in some other position that maybe you don't want to be in, and your intuition is trying to guide you. But when it's a
yeah,
whisper, people sometimes miss it because it just kind of fleets through. But when they
yeah,
start having a relationship with the voice and not thinking that they're crazy and they're hearing voices in their head, then
right.
they start to realize that it's actually good advice
Right.
to help you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree. And also it's one of those things where I say like yes, we say like it's a whisper and like maybe we didn't really hear it, but I actually think a lot of us we hear it, we know we hear it and we choose to ignore it because we let prep societal pressure and other things, external forces, subvert that or push it down, right? We can always explain away why, like for the example of should I go to that party tonight? My body's automatically telling me no, right? And I hear that, but I'm choosing to ignore it because, oh, it's my best friend and they went to mine and we talk ourselves out of it,
That,
right?
yes, I've done that.
Right. And so then the question is, can we actually go back to being really authentic to ourselves and actually listening to it the first time and not explaining away all the reasons why we shouldn't listen to that first initial instinct?
And it is things that as we grow up, I feel like we're more closer to those intuitive places. But then things like family, schools, work, all those things put shoulds or screens in front of you so that that information feels more clouded because you
Yeah.
have all these things that are saying, oh no, you can't, that can't be true. Oh no, that isn't real. Oh, you can't see the invisible. So
Right.
we confuse ourselves by listening to other information that isn't really necessarily in the best interest of getting in touch with your intuition and who you are.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful joy to see how much energy you have in speaking about finding the next path that you're on. And I don't think you had that same excitement when you talked about being a school teacher as you do
No.
about the work you're doing now.
Yeah.
So I have a whole nice list of questions here.
Yeah.
And how do you, you know, how do you find the intuitive gifts that like how can the person access their intuitive gifts or their spirit guides? Is there a way of explaining how to start beginning that besides listening to the voices? Is there more things you can tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely I will always say step one is trusting that you have an intuition, right? If you're
Mhm.
not even sure it's there, then we have a lot longer to go. But that's that's always step one. But definitely if you're kind of in this place where you're going, yes, okay, like maybe I'm getting the signs and maybe I'm like starting to connect, but I don't feel like I have a say in it or I have control over it or I have some agency in there. Like what can I do to actually really blow this thing wide open so I can actually really connect with my guides? And there's a couple of things that I always recommend. So, the first thing I'll say is that in order to really connect with your intuition, connect with your guides, you have to do something to get out of your head and into your body, right?
Mhm.
Now, I am definitely an advocate for meditation. I definitely think it's one of the most effective ways to do that. However, you don't have to meditate or be good at meditating to do this, right? You just have to do something that gets you away from the chattery thoughts of the day to day, right? And so this can be as simple as taking a few really good deep breaths, right?
Yes.
This can also look like, going for a walk in nature with no headphones in, right? Getting your body to move in a rhythmic way where you can kind of be on autopilot and your mind can wander, right? And that will allow information to channel through you, right? For some people, it can look like actually doing a really intense workout so that my mind can finally take a break because my body's so exhausted, right? So you kind of have to figure out what is the thing that works for me. For me, it's definitely a visualization meditation, right? I will like to put myself in my mind through imagination on some beautiful piece of nature, right? It's something that's going to
Mhm.
make me feel really relaxed, but it doesn't have to be that. It can also be as simple as washing the dishes with no headphones in, right? And so you got to figure out what's my thing that gets me out of my head, away from my today daily to-do list, and dropped inward. Okay, so that's step one. Then, once you feel like you're kind of in a calmer place, then the next thing you want to do is really speak out loud to your guides. They want to have a relationship with you as much as you want to have one with them. But especially when you're beginning, it's really helpful to indicate to them, I'm trying to communicate with you right now at this moment, right? And so
Mhm.
this can be as simple as saying out loud, Hey, spirit guides, are you here with me? Right? Or you can be a little bit more polite and say, I'm calling upon my spirit guides. Come and join me in this moment, right? I do this whole kind of ritual where I say, I'm calling on my spirit guides and my loved ones and my masters and my angels and my archangels, and all the beings of light who support me. Please come and join me at this moment. But you do have to say it out loud and invite them in. Then from there, this is the part that people have the hardest time believing. Anything that shows up in your mind from that point on, where you've gotten yourself into a good, relaxed state and you've called your guides in, anything that comes through after that is channeled, and you have to trust that. So you can then go from that point and start asking your guides questions and starting to receive information. And it's not going to feel different than your own imagination. It's not going to feel different than the thoughts inside your own head. But because you have created that container and that context of I channel, right? I relaxed enough and I called in my guides. You asked them to be there, they are there. It is so, right? Now you can start to ask questions. But I know we have a trouble trusting, so I have one other thing that I like to call my channeling insurance policy.
I like that.
Yeah.
Channeling
And
insurance policy.
yeah,
Okay.
because we don't trust
Good.
ourselves, right? We don't. We think we're making it all up, and we all do that, right? And so then here's what you can do is after you've called your guides in, you can say out loud to them, please send me a physical sensation through my body so that I know you're here with me, right? Physical sensations we can't deny. And so that can look like, some people feel like tingling or pressure in their third eye. For me, it actually feels like somebody's taking my hands and moving them back and forth like this. Feels kind of warm
Mhm.
and tingly in my palms. Other people feel like it's like someone put their hands on my shoulders or the, warm hand on my heart. Whatever it is, you can request a specific sensation that you would prefer, or you can just open it up to see which way your guides want to connect with you physically. But then you know that any time from that point on, you can set it and forget it. Anytime that you call in your guide, you're going to look for that sensation. And then if you're asking a question, you're kind of going, did I make that up? Or like, did I imagine that? Is the sensation there? Are my hands still going like this? Yep. Okay, it wasn't me. My guides are here. right? And you can use that as sort of a compass to help you keep trusting and keep trusting. And then from there, ask the questions, receive the answers, and just start to trust what comes through.
Now, when you say this, you're does everybody have like, and I'm asking this for the listeners, not
Yes.
my exact questions. Does everybody have one or two guides, or is everybody the same and they have a room full of guides, or is this
Right.
sort of a thing where it just depends how many guides you get in touch with? So, having you as the example, how many guides that are with you all the time that you work with, and can you tell us anything about them if they're what you vision is tall or short or fat or skinny or a
Yeah.
plant? Maybe it's not even a vision of a body. So if you
Right.
could just
So,
share that.
I get this question all the time, and I have to say that the more that I call in and I channel these beings of light for other people, my definition has definitely changed over time. And
Hmm.
I will say, when I was first doing this, I would say everybody has one main spirit guide, and then as you grow and change and you need new information, they'll call in other ones, and you could have, hundreds or thousands of different guides as it's needed. I've since shifted my perspective on that completely. The way that I look at it now is sort of like your guides are the piece of source that is directly assigned to you. It is God, it is source, it's the universe, whatever. It's going to come through in whatever way, shape, or form is going to be most helpful to the messages it's trying to share with you. Does the guide change or the essence of the guide change? No, but does the visual that you get change? Almost every time. And so
Uh-huh.
it can feel like I have thousands of guides because it feels like every time I channel, they're showing up differently. But it's usually because they're doing whatever they can to get you to understand and receive the messages in the clearest way possible. So, yes, do I have a guide who and also we kind of like to hold caricatures to this energy because it feels so overwhelming to think like I'm talking directly to God. Like, what am I, a prophet? Right? That feels so scary. And so, yes, it's God, it's source talking to you and bringing through an image. And as you grow and change, and the messages you need to develop too, and evolve, then so do the images, right? And the individuals that do come through. So, I almost have moved away completely from who is my main guide, what is their name, right? What do they look like? Because it does show up differently almost every single time I call in a guide, if you will, because it's source. It's coming in to be metaphorical, to offer image, to offer messages and metaphors and support. Does
Uh,
that sort of make sense?
well, for me, it makes a lot of sense. I have never asked those questions. I've just always gone with the intuitive feeling or the body feeling. And I've just said, uh-oh, here's a message coming. But it
Yeah.
never mattered to me, like, was that a spirit that came from, thousands of years ago? Was it a female or a male? Was it an disembodied spirit? I mean, I have no idea. It never mattered to me. I just
Yeah.
always accepted whatever this was. But what I did forget to do that I'm doing now is to show gratitude and appreciation to these guides that are with you, and not to just take it for granted that just because they came into your life with you as you came into this earth now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't always give them honor and respect and not just think, oh yeah, they're always there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a relationship and they're doing their job to support you. That's their purpose. So, of course, it helps to offer gratitude. It's expected, right? And
Yeah.
so, just as we want to be apprecited, so do they. And I 100% agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. I've, I once experienced that somebody was very, very tall, but I don't know that it was a human or what the body was or I don't seem to get that kind of, or did I ever ask? I never really delved into that. I just accepted that it was there and that was it.
Right. And I will say this, sometimes the guide will represent themselves to share with you something about your soul's journey. So
Mhm.
sometimes like a spirit guide will show up looking like, if it's a star seed kind of soul, right? Like they'll look like the planet they hailed from, if you will.
Yes, yes.
Right? So you kind of have a spirit guide who looks a little bit like an alien or a fairy or a mermaid or whatever, and they're just trying to sort of describe like this is where your soul hails from or your most recent experience. Sometimes I'll see spirit guides that look like they'll come in and say, I'm representing you in a past life. Let me show you. Or I was your sister in a past life. And like, let me show you what happened and what your unfinished business is. Right. And so,
Hmm.
they can come in a form. And I know I have a guide who I've seen quite often, although since I've evolved, I haven't seen her in a long time. But initially I had this guide who looked very much like an old grandmother, like not my grandmother, but just an old lady. And I used to call her the grandmother because that's just what she looked like to me. And again,
Hmm.
probably because at the time I needed a very loving, nurturing spirit to come through in that way. And so, you know, but then, then the next time I'll channel and it looks like an angel's coming through because there's that type of message that needs to come. And so, clients are always asking me every time I connect with their guides, what's their name, right? And the guides always laugh and they go, you can call me whatever you want, right? They don't have a need for that. I'm an energy, right? I'm source. Like call me whatever name you feel good with.
I
And so
the
it's so funny how we get attached to that.
I you know I never had the right word either because when people say, "Well, do you believe in God?" and I say, "Yeah, it's just that he's not a man person that came whatever." I said, "But the best way I can relate to it is the source
Yeah,
and I that's my preferred like when if I'm tapping into something and I'm getting information, it's coming from source. That's the only way I can feel that, and it's something that's universal consciousness, vastness, something, but
yeah,
I can't peg it as that it was a man who came back and he's God or anything. I don't have that,
right. No,
but
and
the
I
other
can't subscribe to that either, but maybe
right.
that's because I'm Jewish, but
So here I've got about five more questions here for us,
wow,
so I
yeah,
better
go
keep
for
moving down.
it.
How do you quiet the analytical monkey mind and observe negative thoughts without letting them take over? And I know all of us can relate to this. Even with meditation, when you see how many thoughts. I meditate on Sundays with a Vietnamese Buddhist monk, and he just gave me some statistics that was unbelievable about how many thoughts and things the neurons and whatever fires off in the brain. Like it's a phenomenal amount. How do we still
Yeah,
that? I mean, I know we're saying meditation, but what's actually happening? Is it just
yeah.
following the breath, or is there any insight about that you can describe to people who've never done it?
Right. And I do want to say, like, so I like super ADHD brain, like diagnosed when I was 7, like sitting still and asking me to focus on nothing, right? Or get to nothing. That's not happening. And the thing is, when you're trying to channel, when you're trying to connect with your guides and your intuition, it is not that kind of meditation. It's not the meditation where it involves quieting the mind. That's not actually the goal at all, because we're sitting there trying to have a conversation. So the thing that I always
Mm.
like to say is try to focus your brain on connecting, right? Try to focus your brain on something active. And so for me, I like to take myself on an inner world adventure, right? And an imaginary kind of route. And that is really helpful to kind of feel like instead of I have to move away from all thoughts completely, I'm going to redirect my thoughts to an imaginative place. Because really, when we're channeling, especially for someone who's clairvoyant like I am, where it's all about the images, if I can focus on painting a really rich world in my mind, then that's already priming my mind to receive the images that are going to come through from my guides. And so that's always been really effective for me. But the other thing I can say is that a lot of people say, but how do I even step away from my own thoughts enough to hear the guides? Because I hear my own judgment clouding it all the time. How do I know it's not my thoughts and that it's the guide coming through, right? That it's my intuition? And there's a couple of things I can say about that. One is when it's your own thoughts, they're still going to be there, but you can notice what they sound like, right? Your own thoughts are chattery. They are kind of like the way I like to describe it is like the ticker tape at the bottom of the news screen, like one after the other, bringing Mayday after Mayday, right? Like it never stops and it's typically pretty negative, right? And it just keeps going. And when it's channeled and it's coming from your guide, it's going to feel like it's coming from the back of your head or behind your ears. And
Mm.
it's going to feel really centered and grounded. And it's probably going to feel like one word, maybe a very small string of words at a time. And then you're like, did I just hear that? And then it'll go away, right? Versus your thoughts, they're at the front of your head. They're chattery, they're fast, they're quick, and they never stop, right? So no, the two are coexisting at the same time. My thoughts don't go away when I'm channeling, right? They're
Uh-huh.
there. But the question is, what's the placement of them and how do they feel when I'm channeling?
And uh, how old were you when you started channeling?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was about, I think I was about 24, 25. Yeah, so I was kind of young, newly married.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because usually that's they say there's these few years before and few years after the age of 28, and that's when we end up doing these life-changing things
Right. Like
that
your
that
Saturn
happen.
return.
Right,
Yes.
exactly. And that's when we marry or or we divorce or we whatever happens, but we do have big shifts at that time in our life. That's why I was wondering if it was in your 20s.
Yeah, no, I definitely went through the ringer at about 28, 29. So that still
Yes.
happened, but it was more related to like having my first kid, trying to move into a new house, all those types of things, and learning how to get a backbone a little bit with some family members, right? Things like that. But no, the channeling thing happened a little bit sooner. And thank God, because I had the intuition and I could connect with my guides to help me navigate some of those rockier waters for sure.
But yeah, there's all I can think of is when I look back now, how that the only way I could have survived these accidents or things that I came upon in life, situations that could be life-threatening, was that there was some guide protecting me because
Yeah,
I should not have come through some of these situations. So it's hard for me not to believe that that's really how come I'm still here. I
100%.
trust those guides very much.
Yeah,
So
100%.
can you tell our listeners practical ways to start recognizing signs and synchronicities and everyday guidance from the universe? Like somebody
Yeah.
that's just looking to start acknowledging that's inside them.
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is you have to ask. You have to ask
Hmm.
for the signs. You have to like almost open yourself up to them because they're always showing up in your life. But until you actually acknowledge that you're looking for them, then you're gonna miss it, right? You're gonna not see it. You're not gonna notice it. I believe there's a scientific term about that. Like if I'm looking to buy a red car, like suddenly I see the red cars everywhere, right? Same thing for signs, right? And so, right, ask your guides, please send me a sign that I'm on the right path, right? Or that I'm not supposed to do something, whatever. Ask for the signs that I'm being guided. And then you have to kind of surrender a little bit and just go
Mhm.
about your regular day. And the signs can show up in a lot of different ways. People talk about seeing angelic numbers, right? Like seeing 1111 on the clock or 222 and those number patterns. And people always ask me, like, what do those numbers mean? And I'm sure there are many blogs on the internet that tell you specifically what each number means. And the general consensus for all of them is your guide is letting you know I'm here with you. You're being guided at this moment. Like I'm here.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
And so whenever I see that number on the clock or the 222 or the 1111, I just say, thank you, guides. Thanks for the wink. Like I'm glad you're here with me. But you can also ask for a specific sign, right? And so you can do this by either going into a little meditation, calling in your guides, and doing what I did right when I was starting out. Just send me a sign so that I know I'm on the right path, right? That I'm supposed to quit my teaching job was mine, right? What shows up in my mind? What's the first image that I see? And if you're not predominantly clairvoyant, that's okay. Like, what's the first knowing I have or the first word I hear, right? What is it that I feel come up in my mind after I ask that question? And then again, surrender, go about your daily life. When the sign appears, you are not going to be able to miss it. It will hit you between the eyes. It's not going to be deniable. You're not going to think you made it up. I'll give you the best example of this. Besides my little lion story, I was running a little women's meditation circle myself, trying to show them how to ask their guides for signs. And when we were going around the circle, what sign did your guide give you? What did you see in your meditation? And one woman, she starts bursting out laughing. She goes, "They showed me a pineapple." Like, what the heck is that? Right? And she was also asking the same question, like, should I quit my job? And at the time, she ran a children's shoe store. And so she was at work, a couple of days later, and these two little girls who she'd never met before walked into the store wearing these t-shirts that had these big sequin sparkly pineapples on them. And they walked into the store, they'd never met her before, ran up to her and gave her a hug, one around each leg, big hug.
Oh.
And she called me right away. She goes, "The pineapples hugged me." Right? And so it's never going to show up in the way you think it's going to show up. She probably assumed she was going to see a piece of fruit somewhere, right? Like an actual pineapple. No, no, no. Two girls with sparkly pineapple shirts came and literally surrounded me with love, right? So you can't miss it. It's going to be undeniable. You just have to stop trying to guess how it's going to show up, and allow yourself to be surprised and delighted.
I, I, I have had the experience. For me, my experiences are mostly a lot around death and around people who are going to die, and I somehow they seem to connect me during their passing. When they're passing, I'm just sort of there with them, or my body experiences what they're going through when they're dying, even though I don't know that they're dying. All of a sudden, my body's throwing up, and I know it's not me when it's happening. It's just that my body's somehow connected. But I had
Yeah.
one that just came to mind recently because one of my podcast guests is writing a magazine article and she wanted to include it in the article. And it was the experience of having a spirit go through me. And I'd never
Mm,
had that before. And it was a friend of mine was dying, which I had known he was dealing with, prostate cancer. Except I was in my kitchen, and I'm always in my kitchen when these things happen, I have to say. And I'm standing there, and I'm leaning against the counter, and I've got a plate or something, and all of a sudden I go completely limp and almost just they start to fall to the floor. And I feel this presence go right through me. And it was just like if it wasn't invisible, it would look like an essence of energy going whoosh, but through the
yeah.
front of you and out the back. And
Wow.
when it happened, I knew then, right that moment, my friend just died. And he had come to just say, it was like it was like his soul was going like that to travel to where it's going to be in dying, but it was going to
Yeah.
make a quick stop through my body on its way. Why? I don't know.
Yeah. Thanks for
But
that.
yeah, yeah, and and it didn't scare me in that way. It just that I knew I wasn't fainting because there was anything wrong with me. I knew that this I knew what was happening. But there were times when I was much younger that I didn't know that. And I didn't know I was feeling, and I would think, oh, what's wrong with me or what's wrong with my body? But it really wasn't anything wrong with my body. I was just feeling the other person's body. And so I
Yeah.
wasn't really going to become sick. I was just feeling their thing at that moment. And it's part of having connections like this that we're all connected as one. So it's easy to imagine that we can feel another person at a distance far, far away when we don't know what they're doing, but our spirits
Yeah.
connect on a certain level. So I
Yeah.
always think that's also an important thing to know. Um, Here's something that does happen, which I think could kind of piggyback on this is once you recognize, and this happens to me some of the time, you're out of energy. How do you make soul aligned decisions to shift out of burnout and reclaim your personal energy? And this is one that happens to me quite a lot, where I give out too much, you
Yeah.
know, through a day. And even I'm the kind of person that I can be, in Home Depot or somewhere or Costco, and someone will come up to me and tell me something they've never told anyone. And
Right.
all of a sudden, I'm trying to counsel someone I've never met before in my life online, and they leave feeling better. But then somehow I get in my car and I'm like, ugh, and I'm so drained. So
Yeah.
how do we prevent this burnout and reclaim our personal energy?
Yeah, no, first of all, I just want to say, like, I really commend you for the work that you do because it takes a really special kind of person to help with souls that are transitioning. And I know that I have had some experiences with that. And then I kind of put up the blockers to my guides and I said, I don't want to do that. Like, I can't hold that. It's heavy. It can be heavy. And
It's
so
heavy.
yeah, I really commend you for that. I even stopped doing mediumship to, help people connect with their ones on the other side because I just couldn't hold that space for the grieving individual. And so I really commend you for being able to do that for people because,
Well,
wow,
I
it's
think
incredible
part
what
of
ours
it,
are. But
I feel like part of it, you carry extra weight in your body,
yeah.
only to be like if I was very, very thin person, I don't know
Mm,
that my body could handle going through all those things.
mm,
It's not that I enjoy being overweight, but I've noticed that for so many years I stay the exact same weight. And I ended
Mm,
up noticing that when I ran into a lot of other people who were mediums or channelers or these sort of things, I often noticed they seem to be carrying a little weight also. And I'm
yeah.
wondering if it has to do with being able to handle, I don't know if it's true or we just all like eating, but but there
Yeah.
is this thing of having that much energy go through you that you got to be able to handle it. I found that like just like when you said I don't want to do that, I was asked to do missing person cases. And after
Mm,
I did like three missing person cases, I knew they weren't, it was something I couldn't do because I would be on the scene where the murder or the victim or the person had been taken from. And it was just too hard for me emotionally. I'd sort of be
yeah.
taking that with me for days and feeling the worry and the fear and the thing that the person went through. So
Yeah.
other people like they can do this professionally and they can look for missing persons and they work with the police. And I know
Hmm.
wonderful people who do this. But I knew it wasn't, I was not cut out for it, just like you know that you shouldn't do this with the dying. I didn't
Yeah.
ask about the dying thing. It's always there. I just accept it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a really interesting insight. And now I'm curious. I mean, it does make sense. Like you need to be grounded, really grounded to kind of hold on to that. And so, yeah, it's
It's
interesting.
it
Yeah.
is interesting.
Yeah.
So
But
I
to,
have a
yeah.
personal question for you.
Mm, yeah.
Our audience doesn't know that right now you're getting ready to have a third child shortly
Yes.
because they only see your head, but I got to see that you're in beautiful shape of your beautiful belly with some new child that you're going to bring into the world. So I'm
Hmm.
wondering, and you have two little children besides. So we're not talking teenagers or kids on their own right now. They're
No.
children that need your full attention. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering how you're able to manage, because during my time of raising my children, that's all I could had enough energy to do. So I'm wondering how you're able to do both, which is really wonderful for them because they're getting to see you in a spiritual light as well, even though they're babies or young children, they're feeling your good energy. But how were you able to do that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question and it definitely allows me to circle back to the question I skipped over there about burnout.
Oh,
And
yes,
the
go
truth
ahead.
is, yeah, but the truth is, first of all, I've had to be, and I've had to learn this the hard way. And thankfully, I learned this before I actually did have my kids, which is that yes, it can take a lot of energy to channel guides and to channel beings of light from other people. And this was my guides. They literally knocked me over the head when for some reason, they like to give me concussions when I'm not listening to them.
Yeah.
And they literally have to hit me over the head with a hammer. And so for me, when I first started doing this as a business, I was excited. I wanted to help people. And I was channeling for 4 to 5 people a day. So that's like 4 to 5 hours of channeling. And I
Oh,
talk about exhausted and burnt out. And like, you have to also, right? I mean, there's something about like, you have to, like, when you're channeling, probably not eat so much because you want to be able to reach those levels. And then afterwards, you really got to kind of like ground yourself again and eat really well afterwards, right? So like
mhm.
it can really wreak some havoc on your body a little bit if you're not careful. And that definitely happened to me. I actually this one was so random that I knew I was working too hard, but I was just excited and wanting to help people. And I quite literally fell out of bed mid-sleep and hit my head on the nightstand on
Ay.
the way down.
Was that concussion
And
number three
that
or
was concussion number two,
oh,
yes.
two? Okay.
And so again, now my doctor's like, "Okay, this is your second concussion in like less than 2 years. Like you cannot be on screens." And again, it was literally like, you're overworking. You can't. If I can't be on screens, I can't be working with my clients. I wasn't doing it in person. I was doing it online. Um, so I had to take a break. And from then on, I learned very quickly, you see one client a day, and that's it.
Ah,
And so I had to learn to raise my prices
mhm.
and get over that, because again, I just wanted to help people. And it's like, no, this takes energy. You have to value yourself and value what you're doing. So raise my prices, and I only see one client per day. And that allows me to be home with my babies, right? And, I usually try to do it first thing in the morning. So I'll get to have my little meditative state with my client. And then I can kind of let that all go and then go be home with my kids who are home with me full time because they're very, very little. And so, yeah, so that's really what I do. But I will say, yes, you can listen to those intuitive downloads and you can override it. And if you override it, thank God your guides are working in the background. They will let you know. They will make sure that you get back into alignment fairly quickly. Unfortunately, they have to make some pretty big circumstance changes in your life to make that happen, right? So usually it's a physical something. And so, or it could be a job loss, it could be at the end of a relationship, right? But you know that those signs are there. So the thing I always say is, where am I feeling uncomfortable? What am I willing to tolerate at this moment that I shouldn't be tolerating, right?
Mhm.
And where am I overriding the system? And so when we start to ask ourselves that question, right, and we walk it back to what actually feels good, then we know that we're avoiding burnout, right? And if we do bring ourselves to the point of burnout, then yeah, we're gonna find ourselves in a situation where the rug gets pulled out from under us and we have no choice but to realign. And so thank God your guides are working for you.
Well, yeah, it's like if the cup gets too empty, it's very hard to do the work to give to others when yourself is so depleted. So it's a very interesting balance to
Yeah,
figure out how to be able to, because I feel the same way as you, is that if there's anything I could do to help another person or bring them any kind of relief of any sort, if there's whatever it is I could do, that whatever is possible, I want to be able to help them if I can. That always seems more important.
yeah,
And but you really need to do that in a place where you're in a very strong place so that it doesn't drain all your, I mean, I've
right.
experienced a lot of draining, and it's my own fault from not from taking on too much. And I want to say that that makes the fact that you're just doing one a day, that makes a very balanced sense. And then you can go and be a mother the rest of the day, but you've gotten
Yeah,
to do the thing and use the work of your guides to help and assist you to help others. So
yeah,
that sounds like you've worked out a very good plan. I have
yeah.
to, I wanted to ask you about your podcast, but I also wanted to tell you that I saw that we both had the same guest on our shows. And
Oh,
if you
it's
ever
so
need a guest, I'm always happy to be on your show. I have a book coming out sometime in
yeah.
the next 6 or 8 months called A Small Medium at Large. And so I'm going to want to get on shows to promote it. But we both had Eat It, Be Kiss on our show.
Oh, she's so
Isn't
wonderful.
she wonderful? I took her
Yeah.
course. She
Oh,
she had offered I think it was 6 weeks or something, and it was
yeah.
a one-on-one thing, and I just loved the time spent with her, and I felt like she was a really, I just felt she was really there and behind the work that she was doing. She wasn't a saleswoman or this kind of a thing that she was,
Yeah.
and I find her a very positive, good energy.
Mhm.
And I was wondering how you felt, if you felt the same way.
I was so ready to sign up with her, and I tried to convince my husband to work with her because I feel like she'd be so helpful for him. Because we always say like we all go on our own spiritual journeys,
Yes,
and nothing I can do is going to wake my husband up. All I can do is be the example and let him come along for the ride when he's ready. And I
right.
really felt that she was going to be so helpful for him. So I bought a couple of sessions for him. He just hasn't used them yet, but um,
Well,
but I think that she is phenomenal, and I loved everything she had to say, and her work is just
she was a,
powerful. Yeah,
yes,
phenomenal.
wonderful woman. I think was she
Yeah,
in England or what
I
country was
can't
she in?
remember.
I
I
think it's
can't
England. I
remember.
think she's in
Yeah,
England.
yeah.
Um, so tell us about the classes you offer online and any other projects or sites or anything that you want to share about your podcast and what you're doing now.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, for anybody who wants to just connect with me, you want me to channel your guides for you. I do offer, one-on-one client sessions, and so, and just for your podcast listeners, I do have a coupon code they can use. They can use the code podcast20, get 20% off their first session with me. So you just have to head over to my website, jessicarachel.co, and you can, sign up there. But of course, the thing that I really love to do is I always say my goal in life is to render myself useless to my clients because I really want you to be able to connect with your guides and you to be able to do all this channeling. And so I do have a small course that you can take. It's called Meet Your Spirit Guides, and that walks you through exactly everything you need to do with a few really tangible exercises and meditations to actually meet your own guides and start to receive real answers from them on your own. You can also find that on my website. And then I also do private one-on-one one-on-one coaching if you're kind of going, I want to dive really deep into this, right? I want to do this not only for myself, I want to do this for others, and I want to be able to talk to my guides and receive those messages so clearly that it's undeniable. And so you can do private coaching with me in a package for that. And again, your listeners can have a coupon code for that. They can use podcast 500 and get $500 off that package as well.
So, how long have you had your podcast? And can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about the guests and the,
Yeah, thank you so much. So my podcast is currently on hiatus at the moment. I've just taken a couple of months off to kind of recalibrate and get ready for this baby that's coming.
yes.
This unexpected baby. So my podcast is called Intuition Activation. You can find it anywhere, right? On YouTube, any podcast platforms, right? Spotify, Apple. And it's really, we dive really deep into everything you need to know about connecting with your intuition and learning how to channel. So we do a lot of things like channeling 101 and, what are the different types of guides? What are star seeds? What are earth angels, right? We go really, really deep. And then the guests I've had really, they're typically a lot of individuals who've kind of had a similar journey to myself where this was not what they anticipated doing in their life. And somehow they connect with their intuition and find themselves being one of these beautiful light workers. And, hopefully they'll inspire other people to realize like, hey, if they can do it, I can do it too. And so that's really what the show is all about of like if these people who had normal humble beginnings can become mediums and channels and connect with these beings of light, then so can you.
That's it's a wonderful thing that what you're offering, because the idea that people don't seem to be aware that they don't have to go to somebody that's, say, a psychic or a reader or any of these things. They can do this themselves if they get in touch with the part of themselves that you're trying to teach them about, which is their intuition and their guides. So
Yeah.
I think you're giving them a good foundation or a place to start from to then be able to explore their inner self.
Yeah.
And it's not that they have to stay for, they have to be, like with a guru or something like this. And I think that's so important for people to know that it's actually quite simple and easy. And we all need a teacher or a mentor or somebody that helps us on the way. And I'm always very grateful to the ones that were invisible helpers of mine and the ones that were in their bodies helping me in the present moment that now have passed on, and yet I still feel they still help me even from the afterlife.
Yeah.
And we learn different things from different teachers. Even some of the teachers that I didn't like, I learned from them about what things I didn't like. So you don't know what you're going to take from each person that shares their experiences with you. So
Yeah.
I was wondering, I just want to go over my little question list to make sure that because some of the questions you answered in some of the things that I asked, so I don't have to ask those actual questions. So I'm just
Yeah.
getting a quick line down here before.
Yeah.
Um, oh, I had this one other one I might have missed, and it just has to do with practicing joyful stillness and unlocking profound psychic and intuitive abilities. You see a connection between joyfulness and stillness and unlocking these things. And I was just wondering if you could just touch a little on that, and then we'll go to our closing.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And I think it's such a good way to wrap this up because we did kind of touch upon how, like, oh, channeling can be heavy and channeling can, take a lot out of you. And like, I don't want everybody to feel like that's what it is. The reason that it can feel draining is because it brings you to such a high. Right?
Mhm.
Like it is a high. I mean, I've never experimented with any of the like plant medicines or experimental drugs, but it's what I imagine the ultimate high to feel like. You are bringing and elevating your body and your spirit to a place that is pure light and pure love. And it's so much energy that, yes, your physical body kind of goes, whoa, like I've not lived in this place before. Right. And so, that's why you kind of come down from that experience and you almost have a hangover, right? Because you're just like, whoa, that was the most light and love. And so that is why I try to see my clients as much as I can first thing in the morning, because it can fuel you for the rest of the day too, to just feel like I just connected with source this morning, right?
Yes.
And so I do want to say, like, channeling does have to be light. It does have to come from an elevated place. It has to come from a place of I'm connecting to those of love and of light and the highest vibration, which is love, right?
Mhm.
And to get to bathe in that every day is such a gift. And so, for anybody who lives in a place of fear, which I actually believe is probably one of the biggest barriers to entry when it comes to wanting to channel, is what am I opening myself up to, right? Am I
Right.
going to have these like negative spirits come through, or, these loved ones? And,
Right.
when you set the intention of I'm calling in the highest vibration and the highest good, it is so, then you get to live in this place that feels, quite frankly, angelic,
Mhm.
right? And it feels freaking amazing. And so when you come from that place, it doesn't feel so serious. It feels like I get to play. I get to play in this space. And yes, it does definitely, there's a little bit of a hangover afterwards, but it's a good one.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I want to tell you that I can, I'm 71 now, and I did my first psychedelic drugs when I was in New York growing up, I think when I was 13 or 14 years old.
Wow.
And I never did any of them again until I was in my late 30s or 40s. I can't even remember now, but somewhere in that age. And after I did another psychedelic trip in that, and it had been, 25 years or something since I'd been a teenager, what I learned is exactly what you were just speaking about. So I just want to tell you that it's true.
Yeah.
I was having, for all those years that I never did any psychedelic experiences, I was having all the kinds of experiences that I had when I took psychedelic drugs. So
Yeah.
I didn't do that many trips in my life, maybe six of them, but it wasn't my thing. So I never explored any more of it.
Hmm.
But as I looked at all the years that I didn't do that, and then when I experienced it again, I said, oh, this is
I've done
everything I've been
that.
doing for all these years, and I didn't have to take any drug to do that.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
just want you to know that, yes, I agree with what you're saying, and I believe that to be true.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they do say that like these beautiful plant medicines, whatever, they are a shortcut to enlightenment. They're a shortcut, right?
Yes.
And so it's nothing that cannot be achieved through a practice of meditation.
No, I felt like it was the same thing. I was
Yeah.
able to get to both places on my own or with the drug. With
Yeah.
the drug, I was very young and a teenager, but my experiences during it were of a spiritual nature. They weren't of the rock and roll music thing, which
Right.
didn't compare to my other friends who were just having like a musical experience with it. I was talking to dead people and seeing this and that, and they were like, "What are you doing?"
Right. No.
So and it was a wonderful thing to get that I'd been doing that for all those years without any drugs of any nature. But I think some of these, they're discovering that some of these people who are microdosing and doing these things for therapy and ways to heal their, not that they're going on some colorful journey and looking at hallucinations, but they're actually using it in very small doses that's helping assist them to be able to get over trauma and certain things that they haven't been able to work through. So I think
Yeah.
it has its place and you know, its teaching, and especially the fact that these cultures, the Huichol have been using the use of peyote for, thousands of years. These
Yeah.
people have been using this for sacred ceremonial, not to party, but to have sacred ceremonial experiences.
Yeah.
But I do believe that we can reach those same places without having to take any kind of drug. But it will propel someone who maybe is having a hard struggle to get there. I know
Right.
one man, he said to me, for 20 years, he was in a meditation group and belonged to a community, and he was trying to reach a certain level of growth or enlightenment. And he said, and then he took one dose of some sort of a mushroom and got to the place he'd been trying to for 20 years to get to.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
So it's
I
it's
think it always depends on your starting point, right? Like how much trauma are you having to work through? How many inhibitions in walls do you have up, right? And so, yeah, I do think there's a place for them. And I do think that it can be really helpful and become a catalyst for spiritual awakening for a lot of people, right?
yes.
I've been very fortunate to not have very many or any capital T traumas in my life. And so maybe to get there was a much faster trajectory, right? Um,
You just
but
go for concussions.
yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, it's a high. A high is a high is a high, right? And so it does feel amazing. And I encourage everyone, right? If you can get it for free.
I know this high you're talking about as well because whenever I would do remote viewing, when I was working with Dean Radin and Russell Targ, and I still work with them, I afterwards I have such an elated joy, and I
Yeah.
usually have an incredible amount of sexual energy, and I'm just like
Mm,
everything is all things are all firing at once and you feel so alive after. And I
yeah.
think it is like what you're saying, we're touching into a place that's such a joyous place where we're getting this information. And the other one is one I just started doing recently called telekinesis or psychokinesis. And I've only been doing it for over a year now. And you can see them back there, that tall glass
Yeah.
cylinder thing. Yeah, there's paper in there that I have hanging from a silk string.
Yeah.
The joy that I got in being able to move this paper without having my hands touching anything and being at a distance from it and developing a relationship with this spiral piece of paper that at first I kept saying, I can't do this. I can't believe they're asking me to do this. How can I do this? I don't know how to do this. And then when it clicked and I started doing it, it brought me so much joy. I mean, it's because I'm seeing a physical reaction to energy or intention coming out of whether it's my third eye, my body. I'm not sure how it actually works or what's happening, but I know that I'm not physically touching this object at all. And recently I was able to keep it twirling for like 30 minutes. And I'm
Wow.
thinking they're going, wow, what's going on here? I don't know. But when I finish, I'm like running around the house, like, oh, I'm so happy. I'm so excited, but I can't tell you why.
Oh my gosh. That's actually my next level of obsession. I've been diving deep as well into telekinesis and trying to like learn everything I can about it because it came across my radar. I was like, I have to try this. I have to figure this out. I'll have to talk to you though, because I haven't achieved it yet, but
Uh, well, please do. We could talk about it. Because I'll tell you, the only reason I did it is because my friend Russell called a physicist, had contacted him and was looking for somebody to do it. And he said, oh, call Gail. She could do this. And when this guy calls me from Oregon, George, a really wonderful man, he's been doing this for 9 years, 9 or 10 years, and he has a laboratory with many different objects to move. And
Wow.
he keeps, like some are metal, some are paper, so they're different objects to react to. And he went to St. Petersburg, Russia, and studied with the most famous telekinesis woman in Russia.
Wow.
And when they first started doing it, I could only get it to like move a little bit. It was like, oh, I was sitting there for 10 minutes and waiting for something to happen. It felt like forever. Once you get it, which I can't say how that exactly happens, but once you all
Yeah.
of a sudden get the connection, I've
Hmm.
never not been able to do it now. And the more that you practice at it every day, if you do it every day, when I was doing it every day, I keep a log of when I do it, what time it is, and when I do it. I could do it in within 30 seconds. Where if
Wow.
I don't do it like for a month and I go and sit down, it may take me almost 3 to 5 minutes before I can get it to move. And that now
Hmm.
feels like a long time. Where before it
Right.
was taking me 15 minutes. So I'm just saying, once you make the connection with it, it becomes shorter and shorter and faster and faster. So I'm encouraging you not to give up on that.
Yeah, don't give up. Okay, I
Yes.
will, and I'll sit there for a little longer. And I also notice I'm like, I probably have to get into a deeper meditative state, which not as easily done with little ones running around, but
Well, no, I discovered I was thinking tested different things about that.
hmm
Do I need to be very peaceful, meditative? Do I call in spirits?
Mm,
What way do I do this to make it happen? And it
mm,
seems like when I approach it with the most like carefree, joyous, like, oh, whatever happens, happens attitude, instead of, I want you to move. I'm
mm,
focusing on you. That one seems much harder than the one where, so I've been trying it where I test it when like I've been in a bad mood. I've tested it when I'm happy, test it what happens when there's a, so for a while I wasn't doing it in front of other people because I thought, uh-oh, if I have another person in the room, their negative vibe that doesn't believe is going to affect it and I won't be able to do it. Turns out now I can do it with anybody that comes in the room. And I started showing other people that they could do it. So I've had children come in, and it's very interesting. Like, say, I've had five different children now that I sat down, I showed them what I did, and then I say, now you try it. And I've had two of those five children who could do it instantly, and the other
wow.
children who had no, like, nothing that happened. So I'm just finding this, it's like an experiment to me to keep watching what goes on with this. But I love
Wow.
having this relationship with something that's invisible. I mean, I'm not touching anything. It's in a glass, so there's no wind. It's not my voice or my breath that's making it move.
Mhm.
And what's really going on here? I don't know, but I get the elated joy afterwards, like you're speaking about when you do this kind of work.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's
anyway,
so cool. Well, thank you for sharing that with me because you're right. Like, I feel like that's such a lesson of life. Like, it's supposed to feel playful. Like, we're here for bliss and joy, right? So, why should we approach everything that way? We always take it so seriously. So,
what I used
I
to also
completely
do
agree.
table tipping, and I did
Okay.
that with two scientists and an elderly couple who were very interested in it, and myself and another medium. And in the beginning with the table tipping, when we first started it, we were all like so serious. We had our hands like this all around, and we're touching, nobody's talking, and we're like waiting and wait, nothing's happening. And we did it like once or twice a month, for a few months in a
Okay.
row. And what we started to realize was that when we sat at the table and just laughed and talked and just became casual, that's when the activity started. Not when we were quiet and silent and we're in the dark there and, and you're like, whoa, when is this going to? And I didn't even believe in table tipping. So any of these things that I do, until I do them myself, I don't know if they're a parlor trick or if there's something behind it or anything like this.
Right.
But when
Yeah.
I actually do it and experience it, then I say, no, there is some kind of spirit definitely enters the room and moves that table. I can't tell you exactly how that it occurs, but when other people describe the individual that they see present, that's, a deceased person, and it's someone and they describe it exactly, and they've never heard of this person in their life, that something is going on there. And
Yeah.
we found that laughter and music and joy always brought the table tipping effect much faster. So it's fun thing. I filmed some of them. It was because you can't believe it when all of a sudden like a table is moving and your hands are on there, and you're trying to keep up with the table, and I'm like, this is gonna hurt my friend Stanley. It's going into his stomach. And you see the table legs tilt, and you're like, how could this be happening? So I'm
Wow.
always willing to try these things, but I'm always very skeptical. I don't go into them saying, oh, of course we can table tip. I don't know if we can do that, but it turns out that we can.
Yeah.
So I feel comfortable about speaking about it now. And same thing with the telekinesis. But before that, I'm like, well, I don't know. I've seen people do it. I don't know if there's a trick to it. So anyway, I come from sort of an authentic place of talking about these things and not a woo-woo kind of place. That's all I'm trying to
Mhm.
say.
Yeah, no, it's so cool. It's really cool. And it's giving me encouragement that, like, okay,
Oh,
try it
good.
again. Don't be so serious about it and just enjoy
So,
it.
oh, and also if you're hanging the string, you should make sure that it's made out of silk. That's one of
Okay.
the things. It should be made out of silk.
Okay.
So, all right. So I want to now give this back over to you because we're closing now, and I'd like you to share any words of wisdom or anything that comes up from your. I forgot to ask if you see any spirits around me while you're in here.
Yeah, I wasn't even looking. I was just enjoying our beautiful
Right.
conversation.
Okay. So
I've
we don't.
enjoyed this so much. Yeah, let me see. I mean, the one thing I always love to leave with is, if you take nothing else from this podcast interview, like that your intuition is within you, it's there. You just have to trust it, right? And it's a muscle, you just got to flex it. And so please, like, don't think that you are someone who doesn't have it. We all do, and you can go there and just as you're educating me on like if I could do telekinesis, so could you, right? Same thing. If
Mhm.
I could channel guides, then so can you. And I really want you to just go forth with that unbridled faith that it's there. You're connected. You are a piece of source, right? And so why shouldn't you be part of the one and be able to connect? So yeah.
That's very beautifully said. So, in closing, I want to thank all of you for listening, liking, sharing, subscribing. I want to thank my son Richard for producing the podcast. I want to thank my daughter Nancy for putting it on Spotify, Google, YouTube, and all the social media sites. And I want to thank my husband David for writing the descriptions on the shows for us. And I want to remind everyone to don't forget to share your stories because stories can heal, they can help, and we can learn from each other by sharing. So have a wonderful week. We'll see you again soon. I want to thank everybody for being here today. So have a great week and thanks so much. Bye.